I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Picture the one place on Earth where you feel completely 100% untouchable.
Your sanctuary.
Exactly. The place where you take off all the armor you wear for the rest of the world. It's a Thursday night, September 6, 2018. You're 26 years old. You put in all the work to become a successful accountant at a huge firm, PwC, and you are finally done for the day. You're just sitting in your living room. You're in shorts, a t-shirt, your laptop is open. Maybe you're scrolling through some emails, maybe watching a game. And you're eating a bowl of vanilla ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
This is the image that just haunts me. It's so aggressively mundane. It's the very definition of peace. And this was Botham Jean's reality. He was in his sanctuary.
And that concept of sanctuary is so critical here. I mean, psychologically and legally, the home is a totally distinct category of existence.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the one space where our situational awareness is allowed to just hit zero.
You're not on guard.
Not at all. We don't scan for threats in our own living rooms.
Right.
We aren't in fight or flight mode. We are just existing.
Until the door opens. And this is where the nightmare starts. A police officer in full uniform walks in. She draws her service weapon. She fires 2 shots into the chest of the man eating ice cream. Botham Jean dies right there on his floor.
It's unbelievable.
And if you just heard that headline, officer enters apartment, kills occupant, you'd assume it's, I don't know, a raid gone wrong. Yep. You assume they had the wrong address on a warrant. You assume something procedural happened.
But that's not what happened here at all. This wasn't a raid. Amber Guyger, the officer, she wasn't on duty. Well, technically, she just clocked out. She lived in the building. And the defense she presented, the story that just divided the entire country, was that she wasn't invading his home. In her mind, she was defending her own.
That's the part that's so hard to wrap your head around.
She claims she walked into apartment 1478, saw a man, and genuinely believed she was standing in apartment 1378, her own unit, and that Botham Jean was a burglar.
And that mistake of fact, that's a legal term for it.
Mistake of fact.
That's what we are taking a deep dive into today. Because this case is just a massive onion. You peel back the tragedy of the murder, and you find a layer about, like, cognitive psychology. You peel that back, you find a layer about police protocol and the blue wall of silence. You keep going, and you hit the castle doctrine and how it applies when you're in the wrong castle.
It's really a perfect case study in human error, in systemic failure, and the very, very specific way our laws are written.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a massive stack of source material here. We're talking court transcripts, the legislative text of what became the Botham Jean Act, interviews, and the civil trial outcome from just a couple of months ago.
So our mission today is to unpack that timeline minute by minute, because the difference between life and death here, it literally came down to split-second perception.
Okay, really?
But I figured it out in a nanosecond. How does a trained police officer drive home, park, walk down a hallway, enter a door, and shoot someone without realizing she's in the wrong place?
Okay, to really understand the how, we have to reconstruct the physical space. So we are at the Southside Flats in Dallas. This is a massive, modern complex, 4 stories, endless corridors.
Right, one of those places.
Exactly. It's that cookie-cutter luxury aesthetic where every floor looks virtually identical. Concrete floors, the same lighting, the same door numbers, just 1 digit apart. So Guyger lived in 1378 on the 3rd floor. Jean was in 1478, directly above her on the 4th.
Okay, so they're vertically stacked. If you were a ghost, you could just float through her ceiling and pop up right in his living room.
Precisely. Now, let's look at her state of mind. She had just pulled a 13.5-hour shift. She clocks out at 9:03 p.m.
13 and a half hours is a long time.
It is. Fatigue is real. We know that after that long, cognitive function absolutely drops. Your decision-making slows down. But the prosecution argued, and I think pretty effectively, that it wasn't just fatigue, it was distraction.
And this is the phone call, right? This is a huge piece of it.
A critical piece. She pulls into the parking garage at 9:46 p.m., but she drives to the 4th level instead of the 3rd. Now, why? Was she just dazed from her shift? Maybe. But she was on the phone with her police partner, Martin Rivera, with whom she was having a romantic relationship. They were on a call for 16 minutes while she drove. That call didn't end until 9:55 p.m.
Okay, let's pause on that timeline. 9:55 p.m. The shooting happens literally moments later. So she is parking, getting out of her car, walking through the garage, and then walking down the long hallway, all while deep in a conversation with a lover.
Yes, a conversation about meeting up later that night.
So her head is somewhere else entirely.
It's a classic example of what psychologists call inattentional blindness. It's a phenomenon where you fail to perceive an unexpected stimulus that is right there in plain sight.
Because you're focused on something else.
Exactly. When your brain is hyper-focused on one task, in this case, this emotionally charged conversation, and the routine script of "I am going home," it just filters out data that contradicts that script. She is on autopilot.
I get the autopilot thing. I've driven home from work and then sat in my driveway and realized I don't remember a single part of the drive.
Right.
But walking up to your front door, that involves specific visual cues, you know?
Right.
My door has a wreath on it. My neighbor's door has a weird stain on the floor next to it. You see these things.
And that was the prosecution's strongest point. They argued that her autopilot shouldn't have been strong enough to override the glaring visual differences.
Yeah.
Botham Jean had a bright red doormat. It was unmistakable. Amber Guyger did not have a doormat.
A huge red flag, literally. A red flag.
A literal red flag. And there was more. There was a large planter in the hallway on the 3rd floor, right outside her actual apartment. That planter was missing on the 4th floor.
So you have a positive cue, the red mat that shouldn't be there, and a negative cue, the missing planter.
Correct. A fully alert brain, or even a slightly tired one, should register that and say, wait a second, something is wrong here. Where? But a brain that's deep in confirmation bias and distraction just says, ignore that. We are going home. This is the script.
So she reaches the door. She's at what she thinks is her door. And this is the part that just makes me angry at the universe. The door wasn't locked.
It's what safety experts call the Swiss cheese model of disaster. You need all the holes and all the different layers of safety to line up perfectly for the tragedy to occur. The final hole in the cheese was the strike plate on Botham Jean's door. It was defective.
Defective how?
The door had a mechanism that should have pulled it shut and locked it automatically. But because that metal strike plate in the doorframe was misaligned, sometimes it just wouldn't catch unless you really slammed it shut.
Oh, no.
And on this specific night, for whatever reason, the door was just slightly ajar.
So if that door is locked, this whole thing,
Yeah.
it never happens.
It's a completely different story.
She puts her key in. The key doesn't work. She jiggles it. She gets frustrated. She looks down. She sees the bright red mat. She realizes she's an idiot. She goes downstairs, and Botham Jean finishes his ice cream and goes to bed.
That is the alternate timeline we all wish existed. But the key didn't stop her. She either pushed the door or the force of just inserting the key pushed it open. In her testimony, she said hearing that door unlatch or seeing it swing open, it triggered a tactical response.
Her training kicked in.
Right. In her mind, the script immediately changed from "I'm home" to "someone has broken into my apartment."
So she enters, and she sees a silhouette. Now, I have to ask about the inside, because I've seen the photos of the crime scene. Jean's apartment looked nothing like hers. He had this huge ottoman in the middle of the room, a bigger TV. The smell had to be different.
Oh, absolutely. He had a large bowl of marijuana on the counter, which we'll get to. That becomes a whole other thing. So the scent was almost certainly distinct. The layout was the same, but the furniture was completely different.
But she didn't see it.
It all happened in seconds. She enters, she drops her bag, she draws her gun, she shouts commands, though neighbors gave conflicting testimony on whether they actually heard any verbal commands, and then she fires. It's only after the shots are fired, after the adrenaline dumps, that she turns on the lights and the mistake of fact completely collapses around her.
She calls 911 at 9:59 p.m. That's 4 minutes after she got off the phone with her boyfriend. 4 minutes. The transition from romantic conversation to killer happened in the blink of an eye.
And that 911 call is just harrowing. You can hear the realization setting in, the panic. She says, "I thought it was my apartment," something like 19 times.
19 times.
But you also hear that she's more concerned with her own predicament, saying, "I'm going to lose my job," than she is with administering aid. She didn't perform CPR effectively. She was pacing. She was texting her partner.
That brings us to the immediate aftermath. Because, you know, usually if I shoot someone, I'm in handcuffs instantly. I'm in the back of a car. But the way the Dallas Police Department handled Guyger in those first few hours, it smelled wrong to a lot of people from the very beginning.
It was a textbook example of preferential treatment, or what critics called the blue shield. First off, she wasn't arrested immediately. She was allowed to leave the scene. She wasn't charged until 3 days later.
3 days. I mean, can you imagine a civilian shooting someone in an apartment and being told, "Hey, go home, cool off, we'll pick you up on Sunday"?
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
Absolutely unheard of. And when she was arrested, The initial charge was manslaughter.
Which feels light.
Extremely light. Let's just clarify that. Manslaughter typically means you acted recklessly, but you didn't intend to kill. It's an accident born of negligence. The community, and especially Botham Jean's family, they saw this as a complete slap in the face.
Of course, you walk into a man's home and double tap him in the chest? That looks a lot like intent to kill the person in front of you.
It does. And while the city is just exploding with protests over this, the police do something that really feels like a dirty trick. They release the search warrant for Jean's apartment. And the headline everywhere is, "Police find marijuana at victim's home."
Oh, I remember this. It was infuriating.
This is a classic, albeit very grim, defense tactic that is often facilitated by police departments in these scenarios. It's a clear attempt to smear the victim.
How much did they even find?
They found 10.4 grams of weed. It's a trivial amount. It has absolutely zero relevance to whether Amber Guyger was justified in shooting him. He was in his own home. He could have been sitting on a throne made of marijuana bricks. It wouldn't change her liability for entering his home and shooting him.
Right. It felt like they were trying to plant this idea of, well, he wasn't a perfect angel, so maybe he kind of deserved it. It's just victim blaming 101.
It backfired, honestly. I think it enraged the public even further because the contrast was so stark.
Oh.
The criminal evidence was a little bit of pot in a bowl. The police evidence was a dead accountant in his own living room.
It's just galling.
But there was another incident that night. One that didn't get as much press initially, but turned out to be legally pivotal down the line. The squad car camera.
Right, this is the Sergeant Mata situation.
Exactly. Sergeant Mike Mata, at the time, he was the president of the Dallas Police Association, the police union. So he shows up at the scene. Guyger is sitting in the back of another officer's car, Sergeant Brianna Valentine's patrol car.
And those cars are always recording.
Always recording, audio and video.
Mm-hmm.
That footage is the holy grail of evidence. It captures the raw, uncoached state of mind of a suspect immediately after the event, before the lawyers get involved.
So Mata shows up, sees her in the car, and does what?
He orders Sergeant Valentine to turn the recording off.
He just tells her to turn it off.
Orders her. His justification was that Guyger needed to speak to her attorney, and he was protecting attorney-client privilege.
Wait, does that hold any water? If I get arrested, can I just tell the cop, hey, turn off your dash cam, I need to make a private phone call?
Absolutely not. You or I would be laughed out of the car. Civilians do not get that privilege. If you want a private call, you wait until you are booked or in a secure interview room. You do not get the cameras cut at the crime scene.
So it was special treatment.
Blatant. Prosecutors later argued this was evidence tampering. They lost potentially crucial audio of Guyger spiraling, planning her story, or just admitting fault without the filter of legal counsel. Mata was investigated, and a grand jury looked at it, but they declined to indict him. But you should keep a pin in this, because the state legislature was watching this very closely.
Okay, so this all leads us to the trial. And the charge gets upgraded to murder. That had to be a surprise to a lot of people, right?
It was a significant one. The grand jury looked at all the facts and decided that manslaughter just wasn't enough. They went for murder. And this required the prosecution to prove intent.
And this is where the legal battle over the castle doctrine becomes the absolute centerpiece of the trial.
The entire trial hinged on it.
In Texas, Texas loves its castle doctrine. A man's home is his castle. You have the right to defend it with deadly force, no questions asked.
That's the general idea, correct. But the law has a crucial caveat. It requires reasonableness. If you use deadly force, your belief that you are in mortal danger must be a reasonable one.
And the defense tried to, flip the castle doctrine on its head?
They tried to perform legal jiu-jitsu with it. They argued Amber Guyger believed this was her castle. Therefore, she had the right to stand her ground inside of it.
That sounds insane. I'm sorry, but I thought this was my house, so I can kill you in your house.
It's a terrifying legal precedent to even attempt to set. If that defense had worked, it would mean that your safety in your own home is completely contingent on someone else's confusion.
Right. If I get drunk and stumble into your house thinking it's mine and I shoot you, I just walk free?
That's the logical conclusion. And the prosecution hammered this point home again and again. They argued that her mistake was not reasonable. A reasonable person would see the bright red mat. A reasonable person would notice the different furniture.
And a reasonable police officer.
And a reasonable police officer, even if they thought it was a burglar, would retreat and call for backup. The police station was literally 2 blocks away. She had a radio on her hip. Backup would have been there in 60 seconds.
So it's the ultimate stand-your-ground irony. She stood her ground in a place where she had no ground to stand on.
Precisely. And in the end, the jury bought the prosecution's argument. They completely rejected the mistake of fact defense as unreasonable. On October 1st, 2019, they found her guilty of murder.
Wow. And that was historic in Dallas, wasn't it?
It was the first time in nearly 50 years since 1973 that a Dallas police officer was convicted of murder for an on-duty, or in this case, just off-duty, shooting.
Okay, so then we get to the sentencing. And I think for a lot of people, this is where the wind just came right out of the sails. She could have gotten life in prison. The jury came back with 10 years.
The sentencing range was 5 years to 99 years, or life. So 10 is definitely on the very low end of that spectrum.
It felt like a letdown after the murder conviction.
It suggests the jury was perhaps split, or that they found the mistake aspect compelling enough to show some mercy, even if it didn't excuse the crime itself. But the emotional climax of this entire saga wasn't the number. It was what happened on the witness stand with Botham Jean.
Botham's younger brother.
Yes. I remember watching this live. It was heavy. Just one of the most surreal moments I have ever seen in a courtroom.
He's sitting there giving his victim impact statement.
And he's looking right at Amber Guyger, the woman who killed his brother. And he tells her, "I forgive you." He says, "I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you because I know that's what both of them would want."
I still get chills thinking about it.
And then he turns to the judge, Judge Tammy Kemp, and he asks, Can I give her a hug?
And the judge actually allowed it.
She hesitated for a moment. You see it on her face, but she allowed it. They met in the middle of the court, the brother of the victim and the convicted killer, and they just embraced for a long time. You can hear the sobbing throughout the courtroom.
And then the judge got involved, too.
Yes. After that, Judge Kemp came down from the bench, gave Guyger her own personal Bible, and hugged her as well.
Okay, so I have to play devil's advocate for a minute here. I know a lot of people saw this as this beautiful, transcendent moment, the ultimate Christian act of forgiveness. But a lot of other people saw it and felt sick to their stomach.
You're touching on a very deep cultural wound there. The criticism was immediate and intense. Many activists pointed out the optics. Black people are constantly expected to forgive the state violence that is inflicted upon them. There is this societal pressure to be graceful in the face of unbelievable oppression.
The burden of forgiveness is always on the victim.
Why is that burden on the teenage brother? Why is the judge, an agent of the state, hugging the convicted murderer? To some, it felt like the system was comforting the perpetrator rather than the victim's family.
And the family wasn't entirely on the same page?
Not at all. Botham's father, Bertram, was very clear about it later. He said, "I forgive her, but I wanted her to pay for what she did." Forgiveness and consequences don't have to be mutually exclusive. But the light 10-year sentence, combined with those hugs, it made it feel like the consequences were being actively softened in real time.
It's a lot to process. A whole lot. But while we were all debating the ethics of that hug, something else happened outside the courtroom that was genuinely terrifying. The death of Joshua Brown.
This is the part of the story that just turns it into a noir thriller. It's chilling. So Joshua Brown was a neighbor. He lived right across the hall from Botham Jean, and he was a key witness for the prosecution.
What did he testify to specifically? What made his testimony so important?
He testified that he was in his hallway, and he heard the shots. But crucially, he testified that he did not hear Guyger shouting loud verbal commands like, "Show me your hands," before she fired.
Which directly contradicted her narrative.
Exactly. It contradicted her narrative that she followed police protocol. His testimony helped poke a huge hole in her self-defense claim and helped seal that murder conviction.
And then just days after the verdict.
October 4th, 2019. 3 days after the guilty verdict was read, Joshua Brown is shot and killed in the parking lot of his new apartment complex. He had moved.
I remember the internet just melting down. The immediate conclusion from everyone was, they killed the witness. It just seemed too perfectly timed to be anything else.
He was explosive. I mean, the optics were impossible to ignore. A black man testifies against a white police officer, helps put her away, and is then executed in a parking lot 72 hours later. The NAACP, Lee Merritt, the family's attorney, they all called for an independent investigation immediately. It felt like a message was being sent. Don't testify against the police.
But the police came out with a very specific and very different story.
They did. The Dallas PD announced almost immediately that this was a drug deal gone bad. They claimed Brown was selling marijuana, about 12 pounds of it, and had $4,000 in cash in his apartment. They claimed 3 men from Louisiana had driven over 300 miles to Dallas, specifically to buy drugs from him. A dispute broke out, and he was shot.
Okay, wait. Driving 300 miles to buy weed in 2019, is that I mean, does that pass the sniff test?
That was the source of all the skepticism. Why drive from Alexandria, Louisiana to Dallas for marijuana you can get literally anywhere? Why would a deal for that amount go so wrong that it ends in murder? And why did it happen right then? The skepticism remains incredibly deep in the community.
So people just don't buy it.
Many don't. While the police did arrest 3 suspects and charged them with capital murder, for a large segment of the population, the official story just doesn't sit right. It's an open wound in the community's trust in the police department. Even if it was a drug deal, the timing is a coincidence that just defies statistical probability in the minds of many.
And it's the Bunny situation all over again, right? The other witness who filmed the aftermath.
Exactly. A witness who went by the name Bunny filmed that viral video of Guyger pacing and texting on the phone after the shooting. She later claimed she was harassed by police, she was threatened, and she was fired from her job shortly after releasing that video to the public.
So it looks like a pattern.
When you put Bunny's alleged harassment right next to Joshua Brown's death, it creates a pattern that suggests being a witness in a high-profile police trial is, at best, a life-ruining decision and, at worst, a fatal one.
Chilling. So Guyger's in prison, but the family, they didn't stop with the criminal trial. They sued. And we just got a massive update on that a couple of months ago in November of 2024.
That's right, the wrongful death civil suit. The family sued Amber Guyger directly. The city of Dallas was initially a defendant, but they were dismissed from the lawsuit, so just Guyger. And the jury did not hold back. They returned a verdict ordering Guyger to pay $98.65 million.
Whoa. Nearly $100 million.
Nah.
But let's be real for a second. She's an ex-cop sitting in a prison cell. She doesn't have $98 million. She probably doesn't have $98. Is this just play money? What's the point?
It's largely symbolic, but symbols matter a great deal in law. First, it validates the magnitude of the family's loss. The jury is putting a number on it and saying this life was worth an astronomical amount. But functionally, it does serve a very real purpose. It ensures Amber Guyger will be financially destitute for the rest of her life. And more importantly, it prevents her from ever monetizing this crime.
So there's no my side of the storybook deal coming, no paid interviews.
Exactly. If she ever writes a book, if she sells movie rights, if she does a paid interview for a TV special, every single penny of that goes directly to the Jean family's estate. It is a permanent legal blockade against her ever profiting from this murder.
And where is she right now?
She's incarcerated at the Patrick O'Daniel unit in Gatesville, Texas. And she actually just came up for parole recently. In Texas, you typically hit parole eligibility at the halfway mark of your sentence. She hit that mark in September of 2024.
Did she have any chance of getting it?
The parole board denied her in October 2024. It was a very firm no. Her sentence runs until 2029. She'll get another review in 2026, but for now, she stays behind bars.
We're coming to the end here, and we always like to look at the so what. Tragedies happen, but do they actually change anything? Did Botham Jean's death change the laws?
It did. It absolutely did. And it goes right back to that squad car camera we talked about earlier.
With Sergeant Mata?
With Sergeant Mata turning off the recording. That incident enraged a specific lawmaker, Representative Carlos Sherman. He sponsored a bill, HB 929, which passed in 2021, and it is officially named the Botham Jean Act.
And what does that act change?
It closes that loophole. It creates a specific criminal offense for police officers who intentionally deactivate or conceal their body camera or their dash cam video during an active investigation. It mandates that the camera stays on. It removes the discretion for officers to hide behind something like attorney-client privilege in the heat of the moment.
So that's a tangible legacy. It means the next time something like this happens, the truth, or at least the video record of it, can't just be switched off.
It's a huge step for transparency. And there's also the physical legacy. If you visit Dallas now, the street that runs right in front of the police headquarters, the road every detective and every officer takes to get to work, is no longer just South Lamar Street.
What is it now?
It is Botham Jean Boulevard.
Wow. So they have to drive on his name to get to work every day. That's some poetic justice, in a way.
It forces a daily confrontation with the memory of their department's failure. It's a permanent reminder of the community they're supposed to serve and protect.
And pop culture picked up on it, too.
Oh, yeah. Two Distant Strangers, the short film that won an Oscar. It's about a man who is stuck in a time loop, getting killed by a cop over and over again in different ways. It explicitly references Botham Jean. It helps cement him as an icon of this struggle, alongside people like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd.
So we've unpacked the timeline, the psychology of the error, the legal battles, the controversies, and the legacy. And for me, it just leaves me thinking about that initial image, the ice cream, the sanctuary.
It brings us right back to the most provocative and, frankly, the most terrifying question of this entire case. The defense tried to use the castle doctrine, a law designed to protect you and your home, to protect the intruder.
All because she felt like she was home. Her perception trumped his reality.
Right. And that suggests that our safety, our actual physical safety in our own homes, relies entirely on the cognitive clarity of the people who are carrying guns. If a police officer is tired or distracted by a phone call or operating under some unconscious bias and they hallucinate a threat or hallucinate that they are in their own home, our actual safety just evaporates.
The red doormat didn't save him. The defective lock didn't save him. Being innocent and just eating ice cream didn't save him.
No. And that's the terrifying takeaway from all of this. We rely on visual cues all day, every day, to tell us where we are and what's happening. But when something like inattentional blindness kicks in, we are blind to the world as it actually is, and we only see the world as we expect it to be. Amber Guyger expected to be home, so she killed the man who was actually there. And the Botham Jean Act helps us make sure we record the mistake next time. But it doesn't do anything to prevent the mistake from happening in the first place.
That's a heavy thought to end on, but it's the reality of it. Check your locks, be aware of your surroundings, and maybe forgive, but never, ever forget. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Stay safe.